Hello friends, Tanya here with a video for Spellbinders, and today I'm going to use the Glimmer and the Embossing folder kits of the month. We'll start out with the Glimmer of the month. This is Thankful for You, and it has this frame of leaves, some other accessories, and a sentiment. We're going to start out with some ink blending with Crackling Campfire and Squeezed Lemonade. This is Distress inks, not the Distress Oxides. And we're going to do two panels. I'm only going to ink blend one of them with you, and I'll do the other one off camera. And I thought I could get these two colors to blend between this burnt orange red looking color into the yellow with an orange in between. But since these are Distress inks and not Oxides, they don't blend quite as easily. So I now bring in some Carved Pumpkin Distress ink, and I'll make these two colors into three with a lovely blend between the yellow and the orange. The orange and the burnt orange do a very good job of blending easily. Next, we're going to take some copper foil and this large glimmer plate from the Glimmer of the Month, and you can see how well this glimmers right over the top of your ink blending. This is Hammermill cardstock, and that helps, but as long as your ink is dry, your foiling will work perfectly. I also have a piece of Chamomile Spellbinders cardstock here that I've copper heat or hot glimmer hot foiled with the sentiment that comes with the kit. And then I'm using the Essentials Diamonds. This die cuts perfectly to fit over the top of our frame, and I found the best way to do this is to do each side one at a time, and there will be some overlap. So I add a little glue to the inner edge of these leaf frames, and then I lay the diamond over the top so that they lay nicely over each angled piece of the foiled leaves. I love that they cut right up to the edge and that there's glimmering right up to the edge. I'm going to take my bone folder here and curl the edges to add a little extra dimension to the piece that's going to go in the center of our card. Next, we're going to use the embossing folder of the month called Scattered Fall. Gorgeous, lots of fall foliage and flowers. We'll emboss that on some craft colored cardstock, and you can see how beautiful that is in the center of our card. This is a 5x7 card, so I took that 8.5 by 5.5 inch piece of cardstock and cut it down to 4.5 by 6.5 to frame it nicely on this 5x7 card base. Next, we'll take our element that we've already created and add a little extra dimension with some coaster blank or whatever dimensional type product you would like to use. You can also use just some scraps of cardstock to add a little height behind this central image. Now we'll adhere this to the card base using our Barely Art Precision Glue, and I am going to try to center this as well as I can using the points of the diamond and my grid mat to help me align it. I will use a heavy acrylic block to add some weight to it to help it adhere well. Next, I'm pulling out the peach opalescent sequins that are available in the Spellbinders shop, and I'm going to add a scattering of these across the front of the card. I love how these peach opalescent sequins match with so many of the warm colors, anything from red all the way down onto any of the yellows. I have a really hard time doing a simple card front, so I struggle with how many sequins to add to this. In my mind, I thought we needed a little more on this card other than the central image, the embossing, and a few embellishments. I wanted to throw more leaves on this, but I wanted to also keep it simple. So I hope you like the design here, and maybe you would like a few other leaves. We do have some other glimmerable images in this particular glimmer kit. I just chose not to use them at this time. I really enjoy the leaf glimmer hot foils that we've gotten in the past, and there have been several gorgeous ones. Last year we had a beautiful one also. Next, we're going to take another Glimmer hot foiled piece and add it to the inside of the card. This is just 1/2 of the diamond frame, and I'm going to lay it on the edge of the card, on the inside of the card, and then we'll trim away the excess. But this carries the design through to the inside of the card. These pieces that I'm trimming off, we're going to add to the inside of the card also. You're going to see me struggle a little bit with the placement of these, but I do come up with a plan. This one is a little too close to the crease, and it does cause me a little difficulty when I'm trying to close it later. But live and learn. The next time I try to do this, I don't do the same thing. I did trim off the partial third leaf on this cluster so that it looked like just 2 leaves. Gives it a little more intentional look to it. Here I'm trimming off the last little bits, and somehow I always manage to get little crumbs of probably adhesive I've rolled off of my hands onto the cardstock, and I just brush that away. Here you see me struggling with that fold just a little bit. And that's the inside of card number 1. Card number 2, we're going to pull out the Dancin Mummy. This is part of the August release, and it's so stinking cute. There have been several Dancin sets. There was a Santa, I think we had a gnome, we had a shopping girl, then we had a male and a female figure around Mother's and Father's Day, and now we've got several that were released this fall. We've got the mummy, I believe there was a ghost, and an elf, and a reindeer, and a snowman. So many cute different options for this Dancin series. They are so easy to assemble also. As you can see, I just used 2 colors to die cut the different pieces for this particular mummy. I chose a craft color and some white cardstock, and there are layering pieces on top of the wrap to give it a little extra dimension. Originally, I thought this piece I have in my hand right now was for the top of his head, but nope, it's for the lower portion of his face. You don't have to be exact in your placement of these bandages. There's some forgivingness of this set. And I did cut out some black and pink for the cheeks that I will adhere behind the face. Now there are 4 individual little tiny pieces that you can add in various places above the wraps on each of the legs, acting as a last piece of wrap on each arm. You can add these in various places to add extra dimension and to just fill out your mummy's wrapping. It's pretty easy to apply each of these. I did use the packaging graphic to help me figure out which leg piece goes where, but I bet it would look good either way. I wish I had cut just a few more of these because I could have filled in a little more up the legs. Just adding a couple more here. And then we have the tails. These are 2 different pieces, one's wider and one's narrower, and both of them kind of have the ragged edge to represent the tails of the wrapping. I chose to just use 2, but you could use as many as you want. They're kind of fun to see that partially unwrapping. And for my legs, I always do at least a double layer of cardstock to make sure they're heavy enough to do some wiggling back and forth for your dancing motion. If they're too light, they take too much effort to slide back and forth, so at least a double layer of cardstock is a good idea. Here I'm gluing the pink cheeks behind the openings, trimming off a little corner so it doesn't peek out in front of the eye hole. And the next pink piece, I trim that down just a little bit more and barely cover the cheek. Now the black pieces will go over both the pink and the hole, and that's okay. They'll add just a little extra detail here behind the eyes, and I really like how they look when you layer cardstock behind rather than adding pieces that are the color you want into the holes. And that's our little mummy. I think he's so cute. Next, we're going to take some antique linen, and I started with this blender brush that I have for just browns, but it's a little stiff and it doesn't pick up ink super easy, so we're going to use one of the brand new Spellbinders blending brushes. These are a nice medium size. They're on the small end of medium, and they blend beautifully. I do love me a brand new blending brush. Next, we're going to make a background. We're going to use some Distress Oxide spray with in Mowed Lawn and Villainous Potion. These are some really nice bright colors, and they are going to, or I should say bold colors, and we're going to add some mica spray stain, or excuse me, Distress Mica stain, and these are the new holiday series, no, the new Halloween series. And that was Hocus Pocus and Wicked Elixir. Now my green was a little stuck, so I had to do a little monkeying to get that worked out, and spritzed both of those colors on here too. Now we're doing a lot to this background, but just wait, there's more to come. I spritzed a little water on there to get a little movement, and we're going to emboss this with the Scattered Fall embossing folder of the month. But we're flipping it over so that the printed portion is down, so that makes our images impressed into the cardstock instead of popping it up. Now we're going to, I tried this first. We're taking the Decayed Distress Mica stain, and we're going to try brayering this over the entire piece. However, it's not quite dark enough to show up over the entire card base, and I really want, or the entire piece, I really want the depressed portions to stay this color that we've ink blended, and the raised, or excuse me, yes, the raised portion to be a different color. So I pull out the frayed burlap. I think that's what this is. No, this is brushed corduroy. Distress Oxide, because Oxide tends to cover things, and we're going to brayer that over the top, and you can see the pattern start to emerge from that embossing folder. It looks fantastic. Thankfully, I had recently re-inked all of my Distress Oxide ink pads. Actually, I think I re-inked everything in my ink collection because it was just time. You have to do a little ink pad maintenance now and again. Now we're going to come back with that Decayed Mica stain again, and we're going to go over the top of that, and you can see how it just really sharpens the detail of all of our embossing, and it adds this kind of golden greenish colored tint to it, shimmer. Next, I have this piece of 6x6 cardstock, and I've spritzed it with Villainous Potion Distress Oxide spray stain, or spray, and now I am spattering some clean water on it, and I'm going to use the mica spray stain that is in my box. Now my box, I don't put a layer of paper towel in here, I just spritz away, and then sometimes to add a little extra shimmeriness in a brown tone, because it always turns to brown, I just pick it up out of the bottom of the box, and look at that extra detail. Now you don't have to feel so bad about the overspray being wastage, because you can use it later. Now I did dry that with my heat tool, and now I'm going to go ahead and Glimmer hot foil over the whole thing. Same thing with our Thankful for You Glimmer of the Month kit. I'm just taking the same copper foil, and that is the foil of the month this month. It's a beautiful color. And I foiled that frame again, and look at how that looks on our ink blended, our very, very distressed background. We're also going to take the Essentials Diamonds, and we're going to take some purple cardstock that matches. It's actually from one of the Spellbinders card of the month, or card kit of the month. There we go. From the past. And it matches that purple nicely. It's in that same purple family. So we'll do the same thing we did with the first card and layer these pieces behind the diamond to create our central image. And I trimmed down this piece that we had created earlier to 4.5 by 6.5 and added some extra cardstock behind it just for some extra stability. And we'll adhere that to a gray cardstock base. And this is another 5x7 card. I just really love 5x7 cards. It's very easy to adapt these to an A2 size. I just really prefer the 5x7 myself. We're adding some coaster blank behind the main image again. I just really like how a little extra dimension behind that gives it some extra definition. Next, we're going to use the extra thick, so the dimensionals that come with the card kits of the month are thicker than our usual foam, which works very well for these dancing die sets. So I did cut down a little square that fits in the hole. And it doesn't have to be a round piece. A square piece will be fine as long as it's not too big. And then we're going to use the same height of dimension behind the body of our little mummy. And we're going to stop adding dimension at about the shoulder height. So I'll trim this down to fit nicely under the big square chunk under his head. And that will make him sit nicely on top of the legs. Now that we have all of that ready to go, we'll start assembling the rest of the card. I almost forgot to curl my leaves. That's an important piece. It really adds a lot of extra movement and dimension to your card. So I did get a little bit of glue on my fingers, but that's okay. The Barely Art Precision Glue is pretty forgiving. Now it's time to apply our little mummy. We'll start by figuring out where we want his legs and then add our dimensional in the center of that hole. And then we'll lay our mummy body over the top of that dimensional and look at it swing. He is just dancing away. So cute. I love how this card came out. I have to say this is my favorite. Next, we're taking the Boo Dance Party Sentiments. That came out in August also. And we're going to use this Ghouls Just Want to Have Fun sentiment. I'm taking a scrap of that cardstock that we ink blended and spattered and did all the things to for the leaves. And I'm stamping the sentiment with VersaFine Nocturne ink. And we're going to heat emboss that with a little bit of clear embossing powder, mainly because I really like how that adds some extra dimension, but the other plus side of that is my black ink won't smear. I did stamp it 3 times to get a nice bold image on all of that ink blending. Then we're going to take an oldie but a goodie. This is the Nestabilities circles, small and large. I believe you can still get the large set in the shop, but there are lots of nesting circle dies. I just found one that fit around our sentiment. As you can see, I write the sizes on my packaging so that I know what size circles I have and where they are on my magnet sheet, so that when I'm looking for a specific circle size, I can just scan through all that. I actually have a master sheet in my circle file that shows all the sizes I own. And here you can see how that beautifully sits on an A2 size card, so you can see the versatility there. Next, we're taking a couple more of the sentiments from that Boo Party sentiment set, and we're adding that into the inside of our card. I love how this stamp set has so many fun different sentiments in it. A candy a day keeps the monsters away. There are our 2 cards. Let me know what you think of them. Tell me which one is your favorite. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, now would be a great time to do that. I would really appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up, and if you left me a comment. It really helps the algorithm know you want to see more of my stuff. If you're interested in any of the product that I've used today, check that description box below. And until next time, bye-bye.